I want to talk about the new Netflix release, Ballad of a Small Player, starring, of course, Colin Farrell and directed by Edward Berger. Edward Berger seems to have exploded since All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix a couple of years ago, and then Conclave. This is an interesting film in that, first of all, why Colin Farrell and Edward Berger did it. Edward Berger, I think, is just changing note. Um, Gambling is a tricky thing. It's such an internal monologue filled with personal shames and griefs. Or maybe it's not. It's difficult to know given that they advertise it so heavily on telly and sports now. I mean, you have to wonder what's the world's verdict on it. Um, and there's a weird kind of subtext in the choices the filmmakers make. It stars Colin Farrell as um, Brendan Riley, is a disgraced Irish financier posing as an aristocrat. Lord Doyle. He lives in Macau in China, and he's basically stolen or borrowed a lot of money from people, and he's out there gambling. And he's on death's door, metaphorically. He's broke, he's no money, and he's trying to scrape together money. And he really just stumbling around China with the last couple of friends he has. The film looks spectacular. All the colours are kind of teal and saturated and wine and red coats, and China is spectacular to look at. It's a setting that's becoming more and more familiar to us in film. At first I was unsure of Colin Farrell, but we do all kind of love him now. I mean, I think if Jude Law had played this, you know, we'd have been much harsher on the character. I don't know why. It's just an intuition. I love Jude Law, but I just there's something about Colin Farrell that kind of wins us over. I just actually watched the interview straight after the film there on Whoopi Goldberg, and he does have undeniable charm. Even as a working class dub, he still wins us over, let alone America and that. And more so than kind of taking the self-destructive or the aimlessness plot, they give a real redemption and spiritual arc to the film, which is really satisfying. The film takes its time and it has a weird curiosity about it. What are his motivations? And in a strange way, even though the film is so glossy and it's in a very plush, elegant setting, there's a real, and without using music, I think it's just Colin Farrell. There's a real weight he can carry on his face at this later stage in life that really worries you throughout the film. And it made me wonder why he did it. I know he's had trouble with addiction in the past, but um, it seems odd that he would revisit that kind of self-destructive side of him at this stage in his career, especially after coming off a massive hit with the Penguin, being in both the Batman and then the TV series, to kind of take something on like that. And he's been running marathons and that. He seems in a really clear headspace. He looks fantastic. There's not a whiff of a scandal off him in the papers anymore. Um, and I think it's just that he identified with this kind of very human idea of wrestling with the soul, like which is inherent to cinema, being a transformational. A cinema, I think, at its best, has a kind of simple transformational arc: good to bad, bad to good, lost to found, which is what this film is all about. And I think for a lot of people these days, particularly men, I suppose, will find a weird, you know, uh, sinuous connection to the film if you just surrender to it. Like, you can kind of tell quite quickly it's one of those films. It's a character study. It's not going to be overly exciting. You're interested, you're engaged, you're curious, and you have a weird kind of affection for the guy. The cheap hustle, the likable rogue, which is a character I always love, which you don't really see anymore. Um, especially given the kind of self righteousness of kind of liberal politics and culture, which has dominated the arts. Uh, which I'm all fine for, being the best you can be good to everybody, but it's just not practical as a human being. And I liked it. I liked it. I think a lot of people will like it, but if you have any, it's a gambling movie, and the mob never really shows up in them, because if the mob show up in a movie, the mob in a gambling movie, that sequence is over in 15 minutes. It's about gambling movies. Are about gamblers. They're about loneliness. They're about loss. They're about the highs and lows. It's almost a very private film, and if you're into that kind of thing, I think you'll like it. All right, like it, subscribe, leave comments, whatever you think.